25th at 7:30 p.m. Ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Oklahoma City now becomes one of 4 NBA teams ever, one of 3 NBA champs ever, to win at least 84 total regular season and postseason games.
It's just the beginning, Ben, and you just look at a team with, these guys at such a young age, and, Chet's got a team option, Ismail Dieng has a team option, Jalen Williams team option, Keyshawn Wallace team option. Hey, Ben, they're all coming back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? 2 good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitchers, because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
As we know, it's just we enter every year, and it's, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The NBA offseason officially underway as the Celtics start to shed their roster. Plus, did the NFL collude with owners to halt guaranteed contracts for players? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thank you guys so much for joining us each and every weekday as we're chatting the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We also have ESPN basketball analyst Jay Billis on later to talk about the NBA draft starting tomorrow. But first, let's dive right into the shoot-around.
Yeah, and let's start in baseball. Padres star Fernando Tatis Jr. filed a lawsuit this week against Big League Advance. That's a company that offers players upfront payments in exchange for a percentage of their future earnings. Tatis accuses them of predatory tactics, all to lure him into signing an illegal loan when he was just 17 years old, and it could cost him $34 million. Now, Renee, Tatis says he filed this lawsuit to protect younger players from what he says are predatory lenders and even illegal financial schemes.
Yeah, and the BLA it's come out that they also are unlicensed in some aspects and also pushed him into some loan terms that are actually illegal according to the California consumer protection laws. And I know his attorney's been uncovering the legal aspects, but even for Tatis Jr., when he was 17, he actually signed $2 million that he received up front in exchange for 10% of his future earnings. But at that time, as a 17-year-old, coming out of the Latin American community and needing some opportunities and resources, he said it worked out for him to have money, a better apartment, even food that he was able to get through this because of this deal. So it is predatory in that they're able to, have these tactics to appeal to maybe a young 17-year-old that has interest of playing in the big leagues, giving them money knowing that they're illegally doing so. So I'm glad that Fernando Tatis Jr. is speaking up on this, and hopefully this can get resolved.
Meanwhile, NBC continues to bulk up their upcoming NBA coverage. They named Maria Taylor as their lead NBA studio host. She'll join alongside Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter. She's also going to lead the network's WNBA coverage as well. Also, NBA legend Grant Hill joining the Peacock Network. He's going to be a game analyst, but don't worry, Renee, he will still cover college basketball for CBS and TNT as well, which was a concern because a lot of people thought, okay, is this why he's staying at TNT, one of the last remaining members of the NBA on TNT?
And we've been getting so many updates around who's going to be rounding out the broadcast simulcast coverage for NBC and their return to the NBA. For Grant Hill specifically, working alongside Jamal Crawford and Reggie Miller.
Yes.
As you mentioned, with Maria Taylor working with Vince Carter and Carmelo Anthony. She also is making her return back to the NBA and WNBA. She worked with them and covered them during her time with ESPN, but she really is the face of NBC. We see her with the Olympics. We've seen her on the Kelly Clarkson show. We've seen her cover the Super Bowl. She's been on E! She's been everywhere. So all for this announcement, especially for Maria Taylor. Go Queen.
Yes.
Love that.
Meanwhile, the decisive Game 7 of the NBA Finals between the Thunder and Pacers was the most watched NBA game since the 2019 Finals. It drew in about 16.3 million viewers. And the full series still down about 9% from last year's Finals, and it's still the least watched final since 2021. But Renee, I guess this means high stakes, things on the line, people will tune in.
Absolutely. I mean, that 74% viewership bump for Game 7 for a series that had the lowest outside of COVID, including 2021 season, impacted seasons, the lowest since 2007 when the Cavs were swept by the Spurs. And that 74% boost is because high stakes must-win games like that draw ratings. I think a big part of that, though, is when you look at the finals, people want to watch their favorite players. They want to watch the storylines. And unfortunately for the team like the Thunder and the Pacers, they weren't even accessible throughout the course of the regular season on nationally televised games. The Thunder were 11th and the Pacers were even below them. And when you look at the top teams, the top 10, the Lakers, 39 nationally televised games, including NBA TV games. That is the same amount as the Pacers and Thunder combined all season. So I think this was the first time not only fans had access to see these guys like SGA and Tyrese Halliburton, but you see them in the highest stakes game, a Game 7 of a championship. You can't emulate that in any other games, but I think they can at least emulate the ability to connect with fans in a meaningful way.
Yeah, at one point during the game, the ratings peaked at 19 million viewers. Again, this is far less than the previous Game 7 of the NBA Finals in 2016 when you had LeBron and the Cavs versus Steph Curry and the Warriors when 30 million people watched that. Obviously different times than it is now, but nowadays it's so hard outside of the NFL for anything to draw live viewers at this number.
Correct.
So I think that's still considered a big win.
And we talk markets, but one other thing, Baker, to add is they actually had the higher ratings for that Game 7 more than every game except one for the New York Yankees, LA Dodgers World Series. So it's not just about market size, it's about these high stakes, do or die, must win types of atmospheres that draw fans.
And let's stick with the NBA. Now that the finals are over, it's officially the start of the off season. Already we've got some big trades and signings as teams are positioning themselves for the draft that's happening in just a day or so. So let's take a look at that in our main event. All right, so Renee, let's start with the big trade that happened late last night. Blazers and Celtics. The question coming into this offseason is what would the Boston Celtics do in terms of shedding, previous contracts with this big sale happening, the $6 billion sale, given the fact that they're so heavily in the luxury tax. And Drew Holiday was sent to Portland for Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. But the stat I think is the most hilarious to me, this is the second time Drew Holiday has gone to the Portland Trail Blazers. He originally was traded to the Blazers in that Damian Lillard trade back in 2023, but then was eventually moved to Boston afterwards.
And this is a much different Drew Holiday coming off his worst season in terms of points average per game of 11. Also, the first time since 2020, he hasn't been an all-defensive team selection. But he also is 34 years old, and financially, it's a great move for the Celtics because he was going into this upcoming season owed $32.4 million and then $34.8 for the season after. And if he was to take advantage of the player option, at age 37, he was going to be getting $37.2 million. So financially, you get an opportunity to shed a lot of that contract. And Anthony, a younger player, not as a defensive upgrade, but as an offensive upgrade as well. But he's also on an expiring $27.7 million contract. So they actually have the option. If this season doesn't work out, you still at least got 2 second-round picks out of it, and you can move on from him, let him walk, and you would still be able to reduce the financial spending and be below that second apron. So for the Celtics, a big win. For the Trailblazers, I guess you get a veteran?
I guess in which Portland would claim like this helps maybe get us into the playoffs. But the West, unlike the East, the West is a lot more difficult to get into the playoffs than it is in the East. By the way, Boston shedding about $40 million with this trade. And I think it's universally loved by a lot of people and NBA fans out there for what Brad Stevens was able to get. We should also note there are some reports out there that Kristaps Porzingis for the Celtics might be the next person to get traded. His $30 million contract only has 1 year left on his deal.
Well, the East is wide open, and that's why we're seeing a lot of movement out of teams in the East, whether it's player movement or even coaching movement. I mean, the Knicks are still struggling. It's been weeks since they fired Tom Thibodeau, and they still don't have a coach. And I know when you look at how this is shaken out, former GM for the Warriors, Bob Myers, actually criticized them, like, what are you doing? You know, what is this approach that you're doing?
So
because the process that they've had, and you look at the list of people they've interviewed, it's Taylor Jenkins who got let go by the Grizzlies. It's Mike Brown who got let go by the Kings. It's someone like Micah Nori, who hasn't been a full-time head coach for an entire season. He was an interim during a stretch. So it's a very interesting coaching pool, and it makes you wonder, are they truly upgrading from Thibodeau?
That's the big concern. And Nori, you're right, coached only a few games in the playoffs for the Timberwolves when Chris Finch got that injury, and he had to sit behind Nori as he was coaching the team through the playoffs. What the situation with the Knicks is seems like such a disaster at this particular point. Let's also move over to the Dallas Mavericks, because there was a lot of talk about the Luka trade and all fans that were sort of boycotting the Mavericks, and they were increasing ticket sales. Would they see a bounce? Well, it turns out, yes, it seems like this. According to a report in ESPN, a Mavs team source said they've surprisingly renewed 75 to 80% of their season tickets, and they've sold $8 million in new season tickets in just the 3 days after the lottery. Clearly, Cooper Flagg is a big draw for Mavs fans.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because Monday I saw Nico Harrison trending on social media because people were blaming him for the Thunder winning, saying that it's their fault. They could have won it all. They were also blaming him still for the Luka trade. There's still a lot of salty, bitter Mavs fans, and that's also because following that trade, it was reported that they had a 61% increase for regular season ticket prices days after the trade was made. But having Cooper Flagg, getting that lottery pick, very convenient, by the way, for them to do so, as the top American prospect that we've seen coming out of college in a very long time, does at least help put, some solace to that move.
And still ahead, ESPN basketball analyst Jay Billis is going to join me and Renee to break down the NBA draft and why he says Cooper Flagg might be the best freshman to ever come out of Duke, which is really saying something. That interview is coming up next on Front Office Sports Today. Don't go anywhere.
Just seemed like a salary dump, and that's what the shocking part of it is. But also, let's take a look at this. From a Giants perspective, they have money to spend. People weren't taking their money. Now that they hit the trade market, and quite frankly, I did thought they got a steal. You're talking about a guy that should be good in the major leagues for the next 7 to 8 years in his prime, and the going rate of a salary for a great baseball player from the free agent market, it's $300+ million. I thought San Francisco made out well.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of this price tag here, reportedly, of $1.7 billion for a club that right now technically doesn't even have a home ballpark?
We don't see a lot of teams sold in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you go back to 2020, Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. The only team sold since then was the Orioles last year, also for around $1.7 billion.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter and this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I can't even believe I'm saying pitcher's battle and using the words Patrick Corbin. But can I tell you, Scott, he's a different guy. He's a totally different guy with the Rangers than we've seen.
I say this all the time. Don't worry about the first 5 innings. Like, don't even watch the first 5 innings in Texas Ranger games. Because for whatever reason, there's a ton of runs scored in the first 5, and then it just stops. It just stops.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, friends, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and the NBA draft is this week. And outside of the top three, Renee, a lot of questions about the future of the NBA and who these players are going to be going to. So to get some insight of what we can expect this week, let's bring in ESPN basketball analyst, the great Jay Billis, joining us here on the show. Jay, thanks so much for joining us.
Baker, Renee, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
So let's start things off with the conversation over the last couple of weeks has really been about the lack of quality of the players outside of maybe the top 3 or 4. We've seen a lot of players declining workouts. We've even seen some players even taking their name out of the draft entirely. So how would you sort of assess this draft class?
I think it's a really good class. And it goes I think it goes pretty far beyond the top 3. And then you have the possibilities of trades. This could be a draft where there are a number of different trades that shake things up and make things more interesting from a team perspective. But there's a lot of talent in this draft. It's significantly better talent-wise, top to bottom, than last year's draft. I'm not really good at comparing it to past years, but it's there's a lot of quality in this draft that goes way beyond Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a lot of depth in terms of the draft class this year to last year. But one thing that I am interested about, Jay, as you're looking at mock drafts and draft analysis, how has NIL, transfer portal, and even just the overall landscape of college sports changed the draft, in your opinion, as someone that's so actively involved on the collegiate side as well as with the draft?
Yeah, that's a great question, Renee. I think what you're seeing, or what we're seeing, is that NIL and the opportunity to make money while you're in college has caused players that may have been fringe first rounders or second round picks to stay in school longer. Why go in when you're doing so well financially in college? You can wait now and go when you really feel like you're ready. So we've seen the second round is a lot different with NIL than it would have been in past years. You would have seen a lot of players go, and now they're staying. And I think that's nothing but a good thing, certainly for college basketball, to keep more talent in the game. But I think it's also good for the NBA that they're getting finished products when they decide to go, and players that are really feel like they're truly ready. And I think that's a good thing for the NBA as well.
No surprises at number 1. It's going to be Cooper Flagg going to the Dallas Mavericks. And even you and even Coach K have said Cooper Flagg probably one of the best Duke freshmen ever to come from that university, which is really saying something. What does Flagg bring the Mavericks, Jay, not just on the court, but maybe also for a business sense as well for that town, given the fact that they're still reeling from the Luka Doncic trade?
Well, I think he's the best freshman Duke's ever had. He's a complete player. And you don't see many complete prospects that come out, especially when they're barely 18 years old. I mean, he turned 18 in late December, but he's got great versatility, great feel for the game, and he's also ultra competitive. There are a lot of guys that are great competitors, but I would put Cooper Flagg on the upper tier of the highest tier of competitors, and he's just as impactful on the defensive end as he is on the offensive end. So I would be shocked if Dallas entertained a trade for the number 1 pick. I just think he's the future of a franchise, and Dallas got the ping pong balls in their favor, so he's the future of the Dallas franchise.
Wow, the best freshman you said coming out of Duke. That's a lot. That's a long list of talent to compare him to. But I think I could agree with you on that. The hard part about drafts is that you're projecting a player's future ceiling compared to maybe looking to trade a draft pick. I know you mentioned that as well in that last answer. Who do you anticipate? The Spurs have been one that we've heavily heard of trading a draft pick. What do you anticipate is going to happen? We've already seen some trades. The Pacers, for example, the Grizzlies and Magic, some trades happening. Who do you think is next in that regards of who's going to be making a trade ahead of the NBA draft this year?
I think you can see a number of different teams. Philly's picking third. It just depends on, obviously depends on what you can get for a pick, but I think you're going to have a lot of discussion about trades in this draft, and I don't think anyone's exempted from that, with the exception of the number 1 pick. San Antonio has the 2nd pick and the 14th pick. Could they package that to move down and maybe get more of what they need? That's certainly possible. And then get some more assets in return for it. But if they keep it, I think Dylan Harper's the direction you go, because Harper is a long-armed player that is a terrific playmaker and can get his own shot. He's great in pick and roll. He can really score. So that's the direction, if you keep the pick, that I think you go.
It is very interesting because we've seen some leagues like the NWSL that have moved away from a draft altogether. I don't think the NBA is on that brink, but it does feel like with the NIL transfer portal and so many players electing to stay in college, do you perceive that maybe in the future the draft is going to have to pivot, less rounds, a change in the process, the formalities, to be able to adjust to the times, essentially?
I don't think it can go much fewer rounds. I mean, it's only 2 rounds now with 60 players overall that are drafted. I think the draft's in a pretty good position. It's just, trying to make it. What we're really talking about is how do you make it more of an event?
Yes.
Because for the teams, it's really important. I mean, you can't imagine the amount of resources these teams put into scouting players, gathering intelligence on prospects. And then their draft rooms, that's why it's 2 days now. From my understanding, the teams wanted more time in the second round. There are only a couple minutes between picks. They don't feel like that's enough time to make informed decisions for something that important, and they want more time to be able to discuss trades during the second round.
Jay, before we get you out of here, I got to talk about the golf tournament that you're a part of, the American Century Championship. Tell us a little bit more about this. Tons of celebs and athletes are always a part of this.
Yeah, the American Century Championship is the Masters of celebrity golf. I'm not sure I'd qualify as a celebrity.
You do.
And Travis Kelce plays, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Marty Fish, who's one of the best golfers in the field, if not the best golfer. Steph Curry plays. It's ridiculous the amount of people. I'm a total fanboy when I'm out there. My biggest problem is my caddy doesn't walk with me. He walks with the other celebrities. Dude, you're my caddy. You have to walk with me.
So no pressure here, Jay. Are you the Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler of this tournament? Are you more of an underdog? Where do you stand? Let's get your projection of where you stand in the talent pool.
I'm more the Jean Vanderbilt. That I can have some really good holes, and you think I'm pretty good, and then I will have a heart attack on one hole, and you'll go, "How does this guy get the ball airborne?" But it's really fun. The beauty of it is with Charles Barkley in the field, everybody knows they're not going to finish last. So it's that's a comforting feeling.
Yes, I can imagine.
Charles Barkley catching strays. I love that, Jay.
Jay, best of luck in the tournament, and best of luck also with the NBA draft this week as well. We're going to be watching all the coverage. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We got a lot more front office sports today coming your way right after this quick break.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches, and it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't, but yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado. And unearthed court documents from an arbitrator says that the NFL, with the blessing of Roger Goodell, encouraged all 32 teams to reduce guarantees in player contracts. This after Deshaun Watson signed his fully guaranteed $230 million deal. Big news here, Renee. So let's bring in one of the reporters who unearthed a lot of this alongside Pablo Torre. Let's bring in Mike Florio over at Pro Football Talk. Mike, this is quite a story here. Just explain to our viewers a little bit more about what is in these documents.
Well, it's a 61-page ruling from the arbitrator who ultimately decided that the NFL didn't collude. They were encouraged to collude, but the teams didn't collude. I still don't know that I understand that part of it, but this was the final ruling that went through all the facts, all the law, and it just has a lot of stuff in there that both sides were hiding, and that I think, I mean, you could argue it makes both look bad, but I think it makes the NFL look really bad because it shows that the NFL does at these owner meetings what many have always assumed they do. They collude or they try to collude. And the best metaphor I can come up with for this is they were caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They were caught with cookie crumbs on their shirt. But because they said to the arbitrator, we didn't collude, he accepted that they're not eating the cookies, even though they're eating the cookies.
Yeah, and there was suspicion, especially when you look at other leagues that have a lot of contracts, Major League Baseball, NBA, other leagues with fully guaranteed clauses in player contracts, yet the NFL's had a lot more of incentivized contracts and less money guaranteed. Mike, in your opinion, is this something that is going to continue to change in terms of more NFL contracts that are focused on high incentives, low guaranteed money, to the point that we get to players without guaranteed money at all, or low numbers for that cost?
Now, I think the status quo will continue where there's a certain amount of guarantee, and every once in a while somebody will do a 3-year fully guaranteed deal. But the 5-year fully guaranteed contract, I think they successfully made that an aberration. That was a one-time thing with Deshaun Watson, and that's why it was so important. I'm glad you put it the way you did, because one of the things that comes through very clearly in this opinion, the NFLPA tried in 2 different CBA negotiations, 2011 and 2020, to get fully guaranteed contracts for all players. And the NFL was able to fend that off. That explains why when a team decides to give a fully guaranteed contract and there's no obligation to do it under the CBA, this is when the league mobilizes to try to put that fire out. We don't want to give them on a piecemeal basis what we've been managing to keep from giving them on a broad basis under the CBA. So the key for the NFL was to hold the rope after the Deshaun Watson contract, and they did it through Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. After those 3 deals, it was easy to look at it and say, okay, the Watson deal was just a one-time blip. It means nothing to any of these other contracts. And that was important because if it goes the other way, if Murray gets a fully guaranteed deal, if Wilson gets a fully guaranteed deal, if Jackson gets a fully guaranteed deal, we have a new status quo in the NFL. Quarterbacks get fully guaranteed contracts at a minimum, then it just goes from there.
And this is also interesting because this also is happening as Roger Goodell is looking to extend his tenure as the commissioner. Do you feel like this has anything to do with him extending and staying as the commissioner in terms of his power of working with these owners to stop these guaranteed deals?
Well, it's funny because on one hand, the league shouldn't want this out because it exposes an effort by the league office and the management council to collude. But on the other hand, if this outcome is accurate, and I disagree ultimately with the arbitrator's finding that the teams didn't collude, but if it's accurate, it means that the commissioner's power clearly has limits because he tried to tell the teams to collude and they said, nah, we're good. We're not going to listen to you. Right. So in a weird sort of way, it diminishes his power or the perception of his power, but I think the people behind the curtain know. And this was a win for them. They dodged a bullet. You know, they dodged a couple of bullets that would have been massive by way of liability. Last year with the Sunday ticket case, that would have been a $14 billion verdict. So far, they've avoided it. This, if they had lost this, because it went from the 3 quarterbacks and ultimately included nearly 600 players, it would have been billions of dollars in liability if the arbitrator had found against the league. So the league should be very grateful at the end of the day to Roger Goodell for implementing business the way they want to do it and ultimately avoiding the reckoning twice now massive billion-dollar reckoning that should have come for the way that they do business.
Incredible reporting, Mike. You and Pablo Torre, congratulations on this really great scoop. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for acknowledging and understanding and getting the word out that this really is a big deal, and hopefully more people will understand that.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely. We're here for you anytime you need us, Mike. Thank you. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. Join us tomorrow as we preview the NBA draft happening in just a few hours. We'll see you tomorrow.